Scott from Dundee makes a second speech opposing the motion.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to lie. I am kind of upset that because I'm from Scotland, Lewis doesn't care about me and wouldn't mind if I starved to death in my little horrible poor area which he seems to think that the rest of the UK is. But what Samir showed you is that actually why that's wrong and why that's unfair. So what I'm going to be doing is looking at actually why an independent London would be bad for you, would be bad for London and the people who live there. And by doing this, we'll be looking at firstly the division of labour, secondly how this would diminish London's roles of global power, and thirdly supranational policy making, which I'm going to describe. But before that, I'd like to take a look at what was just said by the last speaker. Because what she went on and told us at great length, ladies and gentlemen, was about the uniqueness of London, about why London is so special, about the different cultures, and how London's just different. Well, so what, ladies and gentlemen? We don't see why that makes a difference at all. I mean, like, why would is this a reason to stop the promotion of this different diversity to other areas of the United Kingdom? And surely, like, this is an example of why unity is a good idea instead of sort of breaking up. No thanks, Lewis, you don't care about me. And then we heard about how crime is different in London, how we focus on and concentrate because it's really specific to different areas. Well, by this rationale, ladies and gentlemen, you should separate off Brixton from the rest of London. You should separate off the different poor areas. You should separate all the different areas where there is more crime compared to other areas. Like, we don't think that's a good basis to base sectioning off a city of 8 million people. Oh, no thanks, Lewis. So, like, we don't see why this makes any sense at all. And then she heard about how Londoners all have a connection with each other. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm from Dundee. I'm from Scotland. I'm from the United Kingdom. Just because I have a connection with Scotland doesn't mean I don't have a connection with the United Kingdom. So really, that point falls as well. And then we have this positive incentive for other cities. And what they talked about was, well, tough love and just, throw out the child. Well, okay, not when it's a 5-year-old child, ladies and gentlemen. Not when it's a 5-year-old child that you've promised you'll look after until it's 21. I think that's kind of unfair. We think that actually you do a duty of care toward that child. So really, you should care. No, thank you. So now we'll move on to my first part, ladies and gentlemen, division of labour. Because what makes London its money? Well, it's the thinkers, ladies and gentlemen. It's the mental power. It's the managerial position. It's the financial sector and all these other things. These are the industries which generate the large returns, which create the wealth. So, but actually, what are these all dependent on? Well, they're dependent on other specialised areas of manufacturing, on getting food, on being able to produce stuff on which the people of London and which the bankers can actually live on. Well,
explain to all of us right now the criteria you would have for allowing a region to become independent.
Right, thank you. Well, actually, we think that that region would need to have the ability to be self-sustainable, which I'm going to look at just now as to why that's not true. We think that actually the people should want it, and we don't see that necessarily there's a huge call for the people of London to actually just sort of separate and become off this separate fragment. And there's a few other things, but to be honest, I don't have time to go into them. So, as I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, we think that London is actually dependent on the other regions of the United Kingdom to be sustainable. Like, on its own, ladies and gentlemen, it just doesn't have the capacity to be sustainable and to survive without the rest of the UK. No, thank you. Because if bad things happen, ladies and gentlemen, if, for example, the global recession continues and gets worse, and then other countries become really protectionist and free trade diminishes and the world sort of ends almost, well, actually, it would really pretty much end for London, because it wouldn't be in a particularly good position. Because, London doesn't have any space for farms, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty built up, no thank you. And as Lewis said, ladies and gentlemen, one of London's symbols should be the kebab. Well, that's not going to happen if you don't have any sheep to make into the kebab, because there's actually no room in London. No thank you. So actually, ladies and gentlemen, if there's no food, there's no profit for the banker because there isn't any banker in the first place. So I think that actually London is dependent on other regions, and that the problems have the potential to rise because London can't actually look after itself and doesn't have the capacity to sustain itself. Which takes me on to my next point, ladies and gentlemen, about its effect on the global power. Because what you're effectively creating is another Switzerland or another Malta, as the prop seems to think is fantastic, but I'll go and show you why actually that's not right. Because what are the criteria for global power, ladies and gentlemen? Well, it's the population. London's only 8 million people. To be honest, that's not a lot. Who really cares about 8 million people out of a global 6 billion or whatever? So that's a bit of a reduction from the 16 million, and so there's less force that we likely to look at. Then there's the aggregate GDP. The UK is the world's 4th largest economy, and that's from all areas of the UK, from different sectors, from different industrial sectors. And London on its own, like, while it'll have a high GDP per capita, per person, in terms of sheer money, in terms of sheer amounts of money, to be honest, relatively it's not that great. And then we have military force. Okay. Because of the small amount of capital, like for 8 million people, they said that, you know, they'll have enough for a standing army. Like for what? Like a tank, and maybe if you're stretching it, a Eurofighter. To be honest, that's not pretty great. And where are you going to have your bases? A consequence of which, ladies and gentlemen, the world's really not going to care about London. And they said that actually the good thing about is that they'll have a, you know, rotating seat on the UN Security Council. What's the difference? Well, yeah, there's a huge difference, ladies and gentlemen. That's that no one cares about the rotating members because they don't have a lot of power. And then, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at quickly super-rational policy making, because of this, worldwide policy making is based on bargaining power. Because we have about 60 million people in the UK, ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot of people to like send goods to and to trade with. 8 million is a lot, so no one cares. So that means, ladies and gentlemen, that you don't have a lot of, you don't have a giant people, so you don't have a lot of influence. Therefore, the world doesn't care about you, and therefore, ladies and gentlemen, London would be weak. So for all these reasons, I stand proudly in opposition.
Thank you, Scott, and that concludes the speeches from the first